Hey everyone. Hey everyone. So this video is meant to help you guys understand how to move from an outline to a mind map. What's really important here is that the outline is linear, and linearity is not a great idea for writing. Let me rephrase that. Linearity is a very crucial to writing, but to write in a linear process is not the best idea for us. We want linear writing in the sense that we want to construct something that moves logically in one direction. However, it's very difficult to do so if you're just writing as you go. And so, by organizing first and working through a sort of mind map to organize your ideas three dimensionally, we hope that it'll be easier for you to understand and organize. So what I've done here is I've just taken the reading notes that were put on pages for you guys, and I've put them in three dimensions, right? So I took each reading and I talked about what I did well in each reading, and then I tried to create categories that I thought were meaningful there. And from there, whatever categories I saw most representative in my list, I represented here. For example, I really love narratives. They're at the top, they're at the center. The way that this is sort of constructed is there's a line down the center of this horizontally, and anything that's quote unquote win is above the line. Anything that's a struggle or something I need to work on is below the line. And because I just love narratives and I find them very easy to understand and they drive me to read more, it's top dead center at the top. Things that are more complicated, things where it's both a win, a struggle, kind of both, I put right on the line. So here you see multiculturalism. I love different cultures. I've studied cultures my whole life. It's one of my favorite things, like narratives, but at times it's a struggle. You have to really go outside your comfort zone and be willing to put your sort of worldview in danger. And so that place is also very inhibitive. It's hard. And so if I'm reading somebody like Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie and I'm struggling with what Nigeria was like in the 1990s, that's a good struggle, but it might kick me right out of the story. I might not really feel like I'm part of the story anymore. And I've definitely read stories like that. On the other side, you can see right on this line is I really love to learn in general. It's just a great thing for me. But right below that is sometimes it's hard to learn. I mean, if you think about this, like some of you struggle with Francis Bacon, some of you struggled with Plato. I struggled with Francis Bacon. It is a difficult read. It is hard outside of a narrative, especially for me. And that's all that it is. It's just like learning, but it can be really, really hard. And then you have things that are just always going to be a problem. You guys might have some of these categories too. If I get bored, I don't want to read when I'm bored. I don't want to read things that are boring. I put Bacon down here because there's no narrative. There's nothing for me to latch onto. And so he is just talking, and I'm not super great about that. Emotionalism, that's a personal struggle for me that I really struggle with things that are overly emotional. It's why I really don't like the British romantics, right? Because they are all about emotion, and I am just not there. And so when they talk about their feelings for 20 minutes, I'm just not that interested. It might be boring, sure, but it's also just not an interest of mine. That emotionalism can really push me out. And so from here, we can start to create categories. And you'll see in a few model videos I have, other than this, how that all works. But you want to choose, okay, well, I need two struggles and one success for this paper. And you're just going to choose based off of what you see here, how that all works. You're going to choose two struggles or successes. I again would have much more information on here. The more information you have, the easier it is to write your outline. I very purposefully didn't put a lot of information on here because I'm trying to stop you guys from plagiarizing, which can be very difficult when we're all sharing the same texts and we're all sharing the same ideas. I just want to ward that off by not even having it in this. So I'm going to be as broad as possible. Once you've decided what your two categories are for your struggles and what your category is for success, you just create a sentence that outlines it. And you want to use what's called a subjunctive adverb. That's a big, long grammatical term that just says it's one of those words that we put in front of a sentence to make it not a sentence. While. So if I say something like, emotionalism really kicks me out of a book, if I put instead in front of that, while emotionalism really kicks me out of a book, now it's no longer a sentence. And I can continue with what I actually want to say. Here, we want to put our success in that first part. While I'm really good at this, since I'm very good at this, because I'm very good at this, right? And then we have a comma, because that's an adverb that starts a sentence. We want to then talk about what we struggle with. I really struggle in these two areas, and you'll see that model a few times in the models that we have here. From there, your categories become your topic sentences. Your story notes that I really don't have here, outside of like Adichie and Plato, those are going to become the evidence and the discussion portions. And this file is going to be available to you as well. You can see this slide is just, okay, what's the intro? If you take those purple questions from the assignment and you just answer them here, and then you make it a cohesive paragraph that leads me to this is what I really like about reading, and these are the places that I struggle with reading, that'll be your whole paragraph, written, done. And from there, we're going to move right into your first category. Your first category should be the first category in your thesis. For me, it might be a narrative. In fact, I think in all of these, it's narratives because I love narratives. And so as we move to our first body paragraph, now my topic sentence would be like, I really love narratives. And then I'm going to use the examples. I read this narrative and here's what I loved about it. And here's how that drove me to read more. And that's how it drove me to understand this story because I really love narratives. Then we're going to have to transition, right, to a struggle. And that transition should be trying to use the language of the struggle. And for example, here I'm talking about narratives. And if I struggle with boredom, I'll be like, yeah, if it's not a narrative, I get bored very quickly. And then I'd be like, if I'm bored, I'm not going to understand what I'm reading. And that'll take us to our first struggle. And we'll talk about our struggle here, and then we want to connect our first struggle to our second struggle, which should get us to our third body paragraph here. And it's just that repeated pattern. Our category becomes our topic sentence. Our experience is our evidence, and we're using that experience to discuss how that impacted our reading skills. Why was it a struggle? Why did we find it so boring? And what could we have done? Well, what could we have done differently will be our conclusion. But that's all that's happening here is this continued discussion. Hopefully you're seeing, if you filled out the beginning, that organizer, right, that the first slide, if you did that really well, all of this is already written by the time you get here. The real goal, because you're like, Trevor, why am I doing all this work? The real goal is that you do this in your brains the way you do math in your brains. You know, when I ask you guys now what 2 plus 2 is, you don't sit down and write 2 plus 2 and then try and figure it out. You just know it's 4. This is a new skill we're practicing, and hopefully you can get from notes to mind map to organization throughout your college career in a very simple pattern. From there, we get to our conclusion. Conclusions are all about catharsis. What we mean by that is it's about closure. You have insinuated a problem. You struggle with reading in some way. We would like to know here how you plan on overcoming that struggle. And that will bring closure to your audience to let them know how you plan on overcoming your struggles. And that's the paper. Like I said, if you do the notes and you follow along and you have all this written out, the paper is mostly written by the time you do this. In the other videos, you'll see models of me going through this process using my mind map, and you'll see models of paragraphs and outlines, but this is just the base one for moving from outline or from notes to mind map to outline. And all that's happening is we're paring down information. In our notes, we're getting rid of the linearity, and we're focusing more on relationships between ideas. When we move to the mind map, we're selecting the ideas we want to discuss, and we're putting those into our outline. And every time we're just getting rid of more and more information to focus our essay more and more on what we want to discuss. If you have any questions, let me know, and I can answer them. Just put it in an email to me. Otherwise, I hope this is helpful. We will continue to work on this in classes this week. I hope you guys have a great afternoon, evening, or morning, whatever time it is for you. And